big old building made of stone. People buried there still call it home. Majestic view of the sea, stormy winters and summer breeze, and the waves smash upon the bay. God is good and God is so great. Bring her people back to their faith. It is never too late. Open the doors once again. It is time we must make a stand.
The church was built in 1916, so it's 98 years old. Father George Macaulay, he built the church. He died in 1926. They built the church because it's made of stone and it wouldn't burn like the one previous. Father Macaulay is buried in the shadows of the church with 5 or 6 miners that were in the 1918 mine disaster at 12 Colliery. So there's one plaque over the front of the church. That whole tower was donated by the pilots from World War I that used the church as a guide to come into the harbour. Men from World War I, World War II, that's the last thing they seen going out of the harbour, and they never came back, right? Like the building has so much history, it's incredible. People have different ideas of what to do with it. Mine's always been to keep it a church. It was always a church, and it should always be a church. People should be able to go there, pray. St. Alphonsus was having structural problems, I do believe, in the early 2000s. By the time it was around 2007, they closed the doors. They had raised money, $60,000, I do believe, at that point for repairs, but they decided to close it. That was when the diocese was under the direction of Bishop Leahy, and they started to amalgamate all the churches. And at that point, that amalgamation of a parish, what parish is, they needed to take out a decree of closure on the parish before they could make it into one, and that was done by Bishop Leahy. But what they didn't do was put a decree of closures on all the churches themselves. Less than a year ago, it was brought to our attention that they were going to demolish 3 churches: St. Agnes, St. Joseph's, New Victoria, and St. Alphonsus. And at that point, we said, we didn't want to see St. Alphonsus demolition. From there, we continued to get educated on that it needed a decree of closure put on it before it was demolished and sold, or anything was done with a church. It needs a decree of closure. And we looked for the decree of closure for St. Alphonsus, then met with the Bishop Dunn. Lord behold, there was no decree of closure. So at that point, he said that in March, I do believe, of 2014, that he was going to put decree closures on those 3 churches: St. Agnes, St. Joseph's, New Victoria, and St. Alphonsus. So when he put the decree of closure on it, that allowed him that nobody appealed the decree of closure for St. Agnes and St. Joseph. They were demolitioned after the 15 days that nobody appealed it. But we did appeal St. Alphonsus and are past the bishop at this point. We appealed the closure of St. Alphonsus. He sent us a letter that he denied our appeal, and then we appealed to the Vatican on his denial, and now we're waiting for word from the Vatican. A number of fathers at the Vatican will review all our stuff, and then their recommendation will be passed on to the Cardinal, and the Cardinal will make the final decision. If they reject it and they go with the bishop, then we can get $10,000 together, because you have to use the Vatican lawyers for it, and appeal that decision. Or if it goes in our favor, the bishop can appeal that decision by paying $10,000 to lawyers in the Vatican from the diocese money, the Diocese of Antigonish. When we sent out 2 packages, we sent out a package. We had to send it to Ottawa, because the process of getting information sent to the Vatican, it goes through the Archbishop, which is in Ottawa, and they have a diplomatic package that they send either every 2 weeks or once a month. So we sent our first package on the timeline was July 7th, I'm going to say. We sent it from here by July 7th. We sent the registered mail. It got there on the 10th of July, and they were supposed to put that in their diplomatic package and send it to the Vatican. But we had sent an additional package on July 30th. Then we got word from Ottawa that they had sent their packages on July 5th. And July 5th, they said they had sent it out at that point, but the second package had just arrived that day. So we figured that both packages weren't sent to the Vatican. Then we get word from the Vatican on September 12th saying that they received our letter that was sent to Ottawa on July 10th. From that letter that we got from the Vatican, we thought that, well, they didn't put all the stuff in it from Ottawa, right? We figure that possibly they don't have all the information to go by, that hasn't been sent to the Vatican from Ottawa, and so these guys are going to sit down and make a decision or their recommendation on limited information. So right now we're waiting. I call the Vatican, and we're waiting for word if there's an alternative way of sending it, or how should we rectify this? Should we send it directly to the Vatican? Should we put another package together, send it to Ottawa, and they'll make sure it gets to the Vatican this time? So right now we're just waiting on the Vatican to give us a voice on how to send another package to fix up the one they didn't get. But this is the newer graveyard here, and the older graveyard's been there since, 1856, so there's generations and generations of people buried here. Incredible. And the church is between the two of them. A lot of them go out and pray and stuff that belong to the church, but even people like from Sydney and North Sydney and whatever, they just come over, pull in, maybe say their prayers, just look at the church, and peace of mind it brings, This seems to be almost like a universal church in Cape Breton right now. A lot of people don't want to see it go. A lot of people want to see it saved, for sure. It's got so much history in it.
Still call it home, and the waves smash upon the bay. God is good.